The dust rose in pale clouds behind the wagon as it creaked along the rutted road toward Briar Hollow. It clung to the hems of dresses and the cuffs of boots, settling into every crease of the land the way hardship settled into people. For Lila May Harper, the dust felt like a final curtain falling. She sat straight-backed beside her father, hands folded in her lap, eyes fixed on the horizon where the cottonwoods thinned and the town's crooked rooftops leaned into view. She had not chosen this road. It had chosen her. The preacher's words from that morning still rang in her ears, measured, practiced, unkind without intending to be. The ring felt heavy on her finger, a circle of cold that seemed to brand her more than adorn her. Married. A wife. The word pressed against her chest until it was hard to breathe. Mind your manners, her father had said, not looking at her. You're a wife now. Be grateful. Grateful. For being traded like a sack of grain to settle a debt she didn't understand? For leaving behind her mother's grave and the only home she had known? Lila bit her tongue. She had learned young that silence kept the peace, and peace was the only thing her father valued when times were lean. The wagon stopped before a low fence and a gate hung crooked on one hinge. Beyond it sprawled a ranch that looked tired but honest. A weathered house with a wide porch, a barn patched more times than she could count, and pastureland rolling into the distance like a held breath. Her husband stood waiting. He was taller than she expected, with broad shoulders and a calm stance that suggested patience rather than power. His hat brim shaded his eyes, but when he lifted his head, she saw they were a steady gray, like river stones smoothed by time. His name, Caleb Rourke, had been spoken in town with a mix of respect and rumor. A widower, some said. A hard man, others claimed. She had prepared herself for cruelty the way one prepares for winter, by bracing and hoping to survive. Her father climbed down first. Caleb, he said, offering a hand. Caleb took it. His grip looked firm but not crushing. Mr. Harper. You made good time. He turned to Lila then, and she felt the weight of his gaze. She kept her eyes low, expecting a smirk, a measuring look, something that would tell her what kind of life awaited her. Instead, he said gently, Miss Lila. Mississippi. Not wife. Not girl. She nodded, unsure what else to do. The preacher had left as soon as the papers were signed. Her father followed him not long after, taking the wagon and the dust with him. Lila stood by the fence, the ring cold on her finger, the silence loud as thunder. Caleb cleared his throat. You'll be tired. Long day. Come on inside. She followed, heart hammering. The house smelled of soap and wood smoke. Simple, clean. A quilt folded neatly on the couch. A kettle set ready on the stove. Sit, he said, gesturing to a chair. I'll get you some water. She sat because her legs felt weak. He handed her a tin cup, and their fingers didn't touch. He kept his distance, as if an invisible line stood between them. They sat across from each other, the table wide and empty. I won't lie to you, Caleb said finally. I didn't ask for this any more than you did. Her eyes flicked up. That was not what she expected. I needed the land your father holds the note to, he continued. He needed his debt settled. This was his idea. I agreed because I thought I could make it right. Make it right. The words landed softly, dangerously hopeful. I don't know what you've been told, he said, voice steady, but here's what will happen. You'll have your own room. You'll have schooling, if you want it. There will be no harm under my roof. When you're grown, if you decide you want to leave, I'll help you go. Until then, you're safe here. Safe. The word cracked something open in her chest. She nodded because if she spoke, she might cry. That first night, she lay awake in a small bedroom with a patchwork quilt and a window that looked out over the pasture. The moon painted the grass silver. She listened for footsteps, for the creak of a door, for proof that kindness was a trick. None came. Days passed, then weeks. The ranch had a rhythm that steadied her: morning chores, the hum of bees in the clover, the way Caleb greeted the animals like old friends. He never raised his voice. He never touched her except when she stumbled once and he caught her elbow, letting go immediately. In town, people whispered. Too young, some said, shaking their heads. Must be cruel, keeping her like that, others muttered. Lila heard it all when she went for supplies, her head bowed, her cheeks burning. But when she returned home, she found books on the table, old readers and arithmetic slates. She found a new dress mended with care. She found patience. Caleb hired a retired schoolteacher, Mrs. Finch, to come twice a week. Lila learned eagerly, her mind drinking in knowledge like rain after drought. She read about places far beyond Briar Hollow, about women who had built lives with their own hands. "You're clever," Mrs. Finch said once, tapping the page. "Don't let anyone tell you otherwise." One autumn afternoon, a storm rolled in fast and wild. The sky turned the color of iron, and the wind tore at the fences. A flash of lightning split the air, followed by a crack that shook the house. Lila froze, memories of her mother's illness and her father's temper tangling in her chest. Caleb found her on the porch, hands white on the railing. "Come inside," he said calmly, holding the door. The thunder boomed again, and she flinched. He didn't touch her, didn't rush her. He just waited, a steady presence in the chaos. Later, as the rain drummed the roof, he set a lantern on the table and poured tea. "Storms pass," he said simply. Winter came early that year. Snow piled against the fences, and the world grew quiet. Lila learned to bake bread, to mend tack, to ride a horse with confidence. She laughed more, a sound that surprised her when it escaped. One evening, they sat by the fire, the room warm and dim. "Why did you really agree to this?" she asked, the question slipping out before she could stop it. Caleb poked at the fire with a poker. "Because once," he said slowly, "someone showed me kindness when they didn't have to. It changed everything. I figured if I could do the same, maybe that would count for something." Spring brought green shoots and gossip. A man in town, a banker with slick hair and sharper words, began to take an interest in Lila. He cornered her outside the mercantile, his smile thin. "You could do better than a lonely ranch," he said. "A girl like you deserves more." She felt small again, the old fear creeping back. When Caleb heard, his jaw tightened, not with anger, but with resolve. He rode into town the next day and spoke plainly to the banker, his voice calm but unyielding. The man backed down, chastened by the quiet strength he faced. "You didn't have to do that," Lila said when he returned. "Yes," Caleb replied. "I did. Time did its quiet work." Lila grew taller, surer. The ring on her finger no longer felt like a brand, but like a promise yet to be defined. When she turned of age, Caleb brought it up himself, awkward and honest. "You're free," he said. "If you want to go, say the word." She looked around at the life she had built, the ranch that had become home not through obligation, but through care. She thought of the fear she had arrived with, and the trust she had learned. "I don't want to go," she said softly. "But I want to choose." Caleb nodded. "Then we'll choose together." They took it slow. Townsfolk watched in confusion as their marriage shifted from rumor to respect. There was no scandal, no cruelty to point at. Only two people learning, carefully, what it meant to stand side by side. One summer evening, as the sun dipped low and painted the fields gold, Lila stood at the fence where she had first arrived. Caleb joined her. "You stunned them all," Mrs. Finch said later, smiling. "By being decent." Lila laughed, the sound easy now. She had expected cruelty and found patience. She had been forced into a promise and discovered choice waiting inside it. The dust still rose on the road sometimes, and hardship never vanished entirely. But when it came, Lila faced it with her head high, knowing that the life she lived was not the one chosen for her, but the one she chose to keep.